What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast, doing another movie review. This time I'm going back to 2019's Triple Threat, directed by Jesse V. Johnson, and starring Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais, Tiger Chen, Scott Adkins, Michael Jai White, and Selena Jade, as well as many, many others. For the sake of my review and everything, I want to stick it pretty much to the main players, the main five, basically in this film that we see the most. So with Tony Jaa, he plays Payu. He's known for, of course, this is kind of new to me. I did not know this, was a stunt double for Robin Chow in the Mortal Kombat Annihilation movie, and the really bad one, of course. Of course, Tony is well known for his movies En Bach, the movie series, Protector movie series, as well as he has appearance in Furious 7 and the Fast and Furious franchise. He's also expected to be a part of Expendables 4, the Stallone project that he's got going on with all the Macho Men. Iko Uwais, who plays Jaka in this film, very well-known guy, martial artist and actor. Moranto was the first one that I remember seeing him. I think that was his debut film, a very good film. Of course, the wonderful and awesome Raid 1 and 2. The Night Comes For Us, where he plays opposite Joe Taslim. And he's also slated to be in Expendables 4, so I'm really excited for that. Tiger Chen, I did not know much about. Apparently, though, he plays Long Fei, and he's been mainly a stuntman and like a small role kind of guy throughout some of the early Matrix films, even the latest one. But apparently his biggest thing is he's also Keanu Reeves' mentor in terms of teaching him martial arts. So that was kind of cool to learn. But the other thing is, like, Tiger Chen is a wonderful fighter. Like, there's a sequence earlier in the film where he's in an arena with Iko and they're fighting, and like he's just a wonderful fighter, like just so quick. Great moves, and they did a really wonderful job with his particular character in this film. So hopefully we get to see more of Tiger, like in film wise, because he doesn't have a lot of like major roles, but this would be something that could build upon for him, I'm assuming. Scott Adkins, a guy that a lot of us action guys are pretty familiar with, mainly because he spent a lot of his time in both before and after this film kind of doing either direct video movies or like just smaller roles, stunt work. He actually played, believe it or not, Weapon 11, X-Men Origins, if you remember that, the really bad Deadpool thing. He was in Expendables 2. He's in this movie called Accident Man. I did see that. It was a really cool movie. He was in Ip Man 4. And, of course, he's going to be in John Wick 4 as a character in there. So that's really cool that he's getting a little bit more attention in that regard, because he's a great actor in martial arts as well. In this film, he has some really great choreography, so I'll get more into that later. Michael Jai White, for those who don't know, he plays Devereaux. I should say Atkins plays Colin, so just so everyone knows who's who in this. White plays Devereaux, who actually I did not know was in Toxic Avenger 2 and 3. Like, he had a role in those movies with Troma. He has small roles in 2 Days in a Valley, Undeadly Ground, and Universal Soldier. And I know that later on, I think it's Universal Soldier: The Return. He actually has another part, which is a little bit bigger, I think, in that movie. Of course, his breakout role for most of us is in Spawn in '97, I believe. Great job. That's a really underrated flick for that fun type of comic movie thing with Spawn, and the effects were pretty good. He played Jax in the Mortal Kombat Rebirth video short, which really kind of caught fire because that's sort of what everyone was expecting when we got the new Mortal Kombat movie in terms of like the violence. Now, we did get some pretty good violence in the last Mortal Kombat, but the Rebirth, the video short, seemed to have like a darker edge to it just in general, because they also featured Reptile in that one, I think. And he did a really good job of Jax. I would have liked to see him actually play Jax in the last Mortal Kombat. I wish they would have done that. But he's also done a lot of direct-to-video stuff as an action hero. Then we have Selena Jade, who plays Zhao Jian, something like that. I mean, Eric, the Asian movie enthusiast, could probably correct me on how I pronounce that. Uh, Her most notable stuff for me is in The Man Iron Fist, as well as Arrow, the TV series. So our main players there are Payu, Jaka, Longfei, Collins, Devereaux, and Zhao Jian. And basically, what it starts off is, and it's this opening sequence of the movie kind of reminds a little bit of the opening sequence to Predator when Dutch and his gang are hitting that little encampment, trying to get some intel and whatnot. So, of course, it turns out to be, for different reasons, it's almost a similar way. As we have Devereaux, who has his group of mercenaries, and he's enlisted two mercenaries, Payu and Long Fei, sort of like trackers and guides to get them to the village encampment where they're headed. And just like in Predator, they start attacking, killing pretty much anyone in the way. Their goal, though, in reality, isn't to save uh, captives there. Like Payu and Long Faith, like that's why they're doing like humanitarian work. They think that's what they're doing, is to save some of the people that are locked up in cages there. But in reality, Devereaux has an ulterior motive to release a terrorist by the name of Collins, played by Adkins. So once Payu and Longfei see what's happening, they get double crossed and thrown into these cages in the ground, and then left for dead after Devereaux sets off like a big bomb, thinking they've killed them all and whatnot. During this skirmish, Jaka is one of the Indonesian soldiers there to sort of guard the village, and his wife's with him. So when it starts getting attacked, she gets shot and killed, and of course, Jaka's out trying to like fight whoever's there, trying to one, he's really mad about what happened to his wife and hurt, but he's trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. He fights Payu a little bit, Tony Jaa's character. That's the only person that really knows who he was. But then there's like this explosion, and both of them get separated, and Payu kind of just runs away. This is before they get double crossed. Jaka, however, has been knocked out. They kind of like leave him for dead at that point. So then, some time later, after Jaka has mourned his wife's death and taken time to kind of get his thoughts together, he decides he's going to go hunt for these guys who killed his wife. So he's on the prowl now. So he gets information and intel that leads him to sort of like this underground fighting cage match stuff that's going on for people to make money, just gambling and stuff. And Payu and Jaka or Payu and Longfei are part of it. They're already regulars there in that cage, so like they make money. It's sort of like Payu's like betting people and getting the money, whereas Longfei is sort of like playing dummy, playing possum for a little bit before he starts whipping some dude's ass. And at that point, Jaka shows up and he recognizes both of them, and he's like, okay. He tells the guy that sets up all the ring fights, I want to get in on this. And he gets in there, and then there's like a short moment early on. Jaka like looks at Longfei, like, "Do you remember me? Do you remember what you did to my wife?" And Longfei recognizes him as the guy from the village, and of course Payu is outside the cage, and he recognizes him also. So they fight a little bit, and Jaka gets his shots in, but in the end, Longfei is just too tough and knocks him out. But both Payu and Longfei pick up Jaka and take it back to their place, because they want to explain to Jaka like what happened, what really happened, like the stuff that Jaka didn't see, where they got double crossed and they were misled to think that they were there to save people. They did manage to get out, of course, as obviously they're alive, but they also got the other prisoners out before the bomb exploded. That's the thing that will come up later. So they're explaining to Jaka, look, we didn't mean for all the other stuff to go on. We were just there to rescue some prisoners, and we got double crossed and left for dead. So Jaka basically drinks with them, and he's like, okay, now I've got some friends who have the same goal in mind, because everybody's looking forward to getting back at these guys. But no one really has a big plan, and Jaka has his own. So while Payu and Long Fei end up drinking a little bit too much and passing out, Jaka has gone on his own in his own, his own little private plan. He alerts authorities. They come and arrest Payu and Long Fei and take them to the police headquarters. Now, on the side of this, we have this very rich girl, Xiao Jian, who's grown up with a spoon in her mouth, and she doesn't really have to work, but she's a big deal right now with the media because she's willing to go and donate a bunch of money to try and stamp out crime and mafia type crime lord crime. Like, she's really taking them on with the money. So she's being interviewed. She's on TV explaining why she's doing this, and it's part of her father's legacy to keep trying to fight crime and stuff. But now it's made her like a target for crime lords, wherever. So there's a hit being put on her, and of course, Collins is the guy with his crew that's gonna go and try to snuff her out. So when she's leaving the TV network, she's they're all attacked by Collins and company who pull up, and she manages to run away, and she gets to a point where she gets to the uh, police headquarters, and this is where Pa Yu and Long Fei are also there. They're being held and being interviewed and investigated from the call they got, because it was actually more about the fighting in the arena. It wasn't anything else. That was why they were being arrested. So Collins is like, he's a crazy bitch, and he doesn't care. So he's like, we're gonna go into the police headquarters and get them and kill all three of them. And of course, he doesn't know the Xiao Jian is there yet. They lost track of her along the way. So they're only thinking of going to kill Pa Yu and Long Fei because they can't have any witnesses to what they did in the village. So they get to the headquarters, and there's all these fighting. You'll see some good fights, and some people die, and this and that. And so a lot of cops are dying, and it's like they just aren't equipped to handle all the machine guns and shit that's going on. And Collins is brutal in that way. And so at some point after that, like, Pa Yu and Long Fei get out of their cells, of course, out of their holding rooms, and they run into the girl, Xiao Jian, and like they realize that she's running from Collins as well. Like, they just discover this in this headquarters as they're trying to get killed, and so now all three of them on the run. After they get out of the headquarters and Collins is still trying to hunt them down, Jaka and Collins run into each other. And at first, Collins just wants to shoot Jaka because Jaka actually had saved Collins from being arrested, even though I think Collins would have killed that cop anyway. But Jaka shows up, beats up the cop, and it's his ploy way to try to win grace in the graces of Collins right now. So he's telling Collins he's been after Pa Yu and Long Fei, and he's trying to hunt him down for years. He's making up a story, and so he's trying to work with Collins, which he eventually convinces he can do. But of course, Devereaux is very skeptical. Neither one of these guys saw Jock at the village, so they don't know he's from there. So, but Devereaux is just very skeptical of what's going on with Jock and his intentions, and he kind of lets him know, I'm watching you and all this. And so eventually there's at the end, there's like this just, big fighting. They've agreed to meet, like Jock and them decide, well, I should say first, it's Payu and Long Fei decided they're going to meet with Collins to turn over the girl. It's like their way of trying to trap Collins. Like, that's the only way they can figure it out. They can't get her to the Chinese embassy because Collins and them were just doing too much to stop them from getting there. So their best plan of action is to pretend they're going to turn the girl over for their freedom, basically. So Collins and them all agree to meet somewhere, but of course Collins has his own intentions as well. They don't plan on letting anybody leave. So of course we've got all this fighting, and really both Devereaux and Collins end up fighting two guys. Like they're that tough as far as martial arts and what's going on in this movie. I kind of did not like the way that Devereaux died. I thought that was really kind of cheesy. And I'm going to get to some more of that in a minute, but the fight choreography in general was awesome. Like it's always good with these guys, and it was wonderful. Like just really good stuff. Flawlessly, they can get close and doing all that stuff. These guys know what they're doing. They do it well. But like, there's one instance of like my issue with Uwais' character, Jaka, because, and I'm sort of biased and prejudiced because I've seen Iko in other movies that I've seen what his fighting is like, and he's really fucking good. Watching this film though, he really comes off like as the weakest of all of them. Like he gets his ass kicked just about by everybody. I know it might be part of what his character is. Like I know they kind of probably scaled his character back, but I don't know, for a guy who is out for revenge for the death of his wife, he literally came close to death himself like 4 or 5 times in this film, just because he was getting his ass kicked by everybody. Like he didn't even get a chance to beat up on Long Fei, even though we find out Long Fei really didn't intend for the shit to go down the way it did. But Iko's character in this film is probably the weakest, which was sort of disappointing. I was kind of like expecting a little bit more from him in that regard. And that sort of led to the death of Devereaux, who wasn't really paying attention when he ended up getting knocked back into this fucking steel thing, steel pipe or some sort, and died that way. It wasn't like anything magnificent, crazy good. But Scott Adkins, Collins, his fight with both Long Fei, or actually Jaka and Payu, Tony Jaa, was pretty good. Again, though, Jaka gets kind of like fucked up and knocked to the side, but Jaa finally kind of got his shit together and beat up on Collins and got shit done. Some things I would have liked outside of seeing Jaka's character a little better in terms of fighting. I did not like the person that set up the hit on Xiao Jian is this other chick. I forget her name, but you don't see much of her, but she's there because she's making calls to Collins and telling him you need to get these guys taken care of, blah, blah, blah. The only thing I didn't like about that scenario is we don't have any real background of that particular character, so we don't know the motivations outside of the fact that she's part of a crime syndicate. But I don't know, it just seemed very empty for me in terms of I would have liked seeing more, maybe either development in that way with that particular character, so we knew at the end how happy we were that she got arrested or whatever. But there wasn't much there to go on, so it's kind of you could have left her out of the movie entirely. You could have just had a voice on the other end of the phone. That's how meaningless it was. And at the very end of the film, of course, the good guys win. But I kind of wish that it would have ended a little bit differently, because obviously Zhejiang is getting ready to go to the Chinese embassy to go and report whatever the hell happened, and of course back to real safety, protection there. I would have liked to have seen the three guys at the end sort of become her personal bodyguards going forward or something, because none of them are really have anything else. I mean, they were all kind of directionless, really, at that point before fighting against Collins and company. So uh, you could have set up something for a sequel that way. You probably still could if you find a way to backstory it a little bit. But yeah, overall, this film, I guess, from what I understand, took a lot of hit, negativity and whatnot. But and maybe it does because there's like a lot of big names in it. But at the same time, I thought it was still pretty well done. It was a lot of fun, and it problematic in certain spots. As I said, I pointed out to a couple of them, but overall, I thought it was a very good film. And so, yeah, check it out. It's on. Is it on Netflix? Yeah, I believe it's Netflix right now. It's on. So give it a shot. See if you like it. If you like martial arts, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Check it out. All right, all. Have a good one. Take care.